Welcome to another episode of Business Talk, where we get to zoom into the lives of the business leaders shaping their industries and talk about the big issues that they're facing and also how they've managed to build through a global pandemic. Not every day you get to say you've done that on your CV. InsurTech was a big theme before COVID, and last year when Naspers' SA-focused venture capital unit, the Foundry, lifted the lid on a 120 million rand investment in digital insurer Naked Insurance. That was its largest deal to that point. I think people really sat up and started paying attention if they weren't already. Well, I've got Alex Thomson, who's co-founder of Naked, in the Zoom room today. Alex, wow, that must have been a really sweet moment for you as an entrepreneur. But I want to take you back. This idea, Naked, was born out of observations that the insurance industry was really struggling to come to grips with the digital world, where we as consumers, I think, we become used to immediacy, convenience, transparency, affordability. That has become the base level. And we've got no patience, let's face it, for paperwork and call centers. Seems simple enough, but how difficult was it to start a business in South Africa with that vision?
Hi, Michael. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. It was, I think starting any business at any time in any place is always hard. Starting this business was really a dream come true. You know, we had worked with a lot of these insurance players in the country and more broadly, and had seen these issues, the challenges of trying to meet people's needs for that, as you say, that sort of instant availability, being able to do things themselves, a kind of self-service model. And, it was something which we saw very clearly as being what people really wanted. And, it was a big shift. I mean, myself and my other co-founders are people with a background in insurance. We realized that the business of the future was going to be a technology-led business, not just a business that, made good use of technology, but put technology first. So we've tried to build a business which really is like a technology business, like you might get in Silicon Valley or somewhere, and then, happen to do insurance with that technology. So it's been quite a ride for someone who spent most of their life in corporate. It's been quite a journey, but a lot of fun. And so far, no regrets.
But you say you're insurance people first and foremost. So when it came to the technology, how did you approach that? Did you bring in the skills? Did you upskill yourselves? Did you feel it was necessary in order to have those conversations to at least become what they call a kind of T-shaped specialist, where you've got that deep industry knowledge of insurance, but you can at least go broad into other areas? How did you approach it?
I think, personally, I've always had a little bit of an interest in technology, and as in the insurance industry, you do use a lot of technology. As an actuary, you use a lot of technology. So I've always been kind of close to it. But we realized, yes, we didn't have all the skills. So we brought in some extremely talented people without whom we would never have got to where we've got to. And then, as you said, upskilling, there's so much information out there. And for the same reason, really, that we think people can buy insurance themselves, you can learn a hell of a lot about technology by just, investing the time, reading, speaking to people. And, I'm certainly no guru, but I've learned a hell of a lot, in the last 5 years. And so, I kind of know my way around the tech a bit.
Yeah, enough to ensure that some silvery-tongued IT salesman isn't going to just sell you the next shiny bell and whistle. Now, I think a big part of your ambition, of Naked's ambition, is to improve the customer experience, as you've said, through technology, being technology-led. Do you think you're succeeding? I mean, if you hold the lens up to yourself and you're brutally honest?
I certainly do. I think there's two things I think that people are looking for with us. I mean, so one is that experience. They don't want to be tripped up. They don't want it to be confusing. They want it to be absolutely clear what they need to do, what's covered and what's not covered. They don't want to be ending up back in the call center the whole time. They want to be able to do things themselves. And the feedback we've got is that it's really easy. It's a lot simpler and quicker than anything else in the market. And then they also want the price to be right? So you can have the best experience in the world, but when it comes to something like car insurance or home insurance, you want to pay the lowest possible price. And I think those two things together reinforce each other. When people see a very simple experience, go through a very simple experience and then get the right price, They feel they're on the right track, that something is working here. And of course, when people are doing things themselves and the technology is working, it does save us money. And that saving we can pass on to the consumer in the form of low prices.
Yeah, it's almost like you're taking out of the playbook that another very well-known entrepreneur and now angel investor, venture capitalist, call him what you will, Michael Jordan, was relaying about his new digital bank, Bank Zero. He says you make it easy, and you come in and you attack the very high bank fees in the country, and very soon consumers start to realize that, and that's a pretty good formula. When it comes to kind of high touch, digital versus in person, I think many people still find that they want some kind of personal connection. We found that through Zoom, or through the pandemic, you can Zoom, you can Teams, but we still want to meet people. And when it comes to dealing with your finances, has COVID changed this behavior? Do people still feel like they need to go and see an insurance broker, or they're very comfortable just doing everything digitally?
Well, of course, COVID and lockdown and so on has accelerated digital adoption, and all forms of e-commerce, and insurance is no different. But yeah, I think that there's still a feeling amongst certain people that insurance is the kind of thing you want to talk through with somebody. But what we've noticed is that more and more people are asking themselves the question, if I can do my banking online, if I can, book my travel myself online, if I can book a taxi, all these things that previously involved other people, why can't I do insurance myself? And if you do it the right way, and if you treat people as intelligent human beings who are capable, it's remarkable how much people can search online, understand the issues in play, make sensible decisions. And I think people are making very good decisions about their insurance. And a big part of it, and a big part of what we're trying to do, is to get out of this kind of almost paternalistic mindset of people out there, not being able to do it themselves, that this is something where they need to be looked after. And really, particularly the younger generation is like, no, don't treat me like this. I'm quite capable of doing this myself. I want to see something which is easy to use. I want all the information that's relevant clearly presented to me. I want to be able to compare my options, and I don't want this to waste my time. And if you can get that right, I think that almost anything can be done completely self-service online. And yeah, we're seeing that. We've seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of people who maybe 2 or 3 years ago, pre-COVID, would have never considered it, who are now customers and happy customers of ours.
Yeah. We see it in the rise of retail investors as well, and those online platforms that are allowing individuals to take ownership of their investing journeys. Don't have to always go through a broker or a financial advisor. Yes, it's good to be able to have a sounding board, but a lot of the stuff you can do yourself. If you go online, it's all there. It's not rocket science. And I think so many industries created that layer of intermediaries almost to create a sense of mystique around what they do. And all it did was create costs in the system that are there and ripe for the attacking. Now, Naked has received funding in several series of funding rounds, including that one that I mentioned in August that was led by Naspers. You also have funding from some of the more traditional insurers in the country. What are you going to be doing with all of the cash? And just take me through what your growth journey looks like now in 2022 out.
So we've received money that's allowed us to build what we think is one of the world's leading insurance platforms. But that's an ongoing journey. So a big part of the money is to continue to offer a better and better service, to expand the product range. At the moment we do cars, we do buildings and contents, we cover individual things like laptops and phones and bicycles and jewelry. But there's a lot more that we want to do. So we are continuing to invest in the technology and also in improving the level of automation to really continue to improve the speed with which we do things. And for example, on claims, we're spending a lot of money at the moment in improving our claims experience and building automation and the like into our claims processing. And in addition to that, of course, we think we've got this incredible product, but the average person in this country hasn't even heard of us. So, there's a lot of just getting the word out there. And so, you may have seen some of our advertising, and we're going to be continuing to grow our spend in that space to try to really announce ourselves to the world, and to really try and create the right brand for the public at large.
And that clearly means you're very comfortable with the systems and processes you've got in place to scale. And often you chat to venture capitalists and they say one of the most difficult things as an entrepreneurs by their nature are builders, they're dreamers, they're innovators. But when it comes to scaling a business, you almost need a different jockey in the seat. How do you view yourself? Where do you view your own strengths in that? And talk to me a little bit about how you're approaching scaling.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, so I'm personally probably better at that early stage. I really enjoy the new problems, trying to come up with innovative solutions to those kind of things. But I'm very fortunate that I'm not the only person here, and that some of my co-founders are actually extremely good operators and extremely capable in building a very tight ship where everything is 100% where it should be, delivering consistently high quality of service, making sure that costs are under control, the whole story. So I mean, that's probably not where I'm the best, but you don't have to be everything in a business, and so I mean, in the scaling of it, as you say, there's a huge number of new problems, new challenges that one needs to overcome. And, the team, when we first launched, I mean, we really were sort of 6 or 7 people. I mean, that was, when we launched our car insurance product, we did everything in-house as well. Now we, a lot larger than that. And, and with that comes all of the challenges that you see within organizations. But I have to say, despite all of that it's fun. And, I mean, change is great if you roll with it. It's like, it's a new thing to deal with every day. And, I look forward to every day here. It's an absolute jewel.
How much is a lot larger? Can you give me some numbers? Just how big is Naked?
Sure. Well, yeah, we're just over 60 people now. So, I mean, and that sounds, I mean, certainly if you compare us to the sort of established, well, yeah, at a headcount level, I mean, our sales are more than 10x. I can assure you that. But and if you compare our book size to that of a traditional insurer, we've got a fraction of the headcount. And that's where the technology comes in. That we scale very easily because the technology just scales and scales. It's in the cloud, and we have obviously set things up in a way that there are scaling things you've got to think about, but a lot of it just happens automatically.
And that's why the model is so attractive to other investors as well, because they want to get in at this stage of your growth curve. It sounds very much like you are just at the very early part of that J, and still a lot of that exponential growth ahead of you. If you zoom out and you look at the insurance industry as a whole, now I know you're predominantly in short-term insurance. I know COVID came and we had the whole issue around business interruption claims not being paid. On the other hand, we saw a lot of short-term insurers being quite flexible, nimble, saying, right, if you're not driving as much, we won't, we'll reduce your premium. How have you seen attitudes change towards short-term insurance from your vantage point?
Yes, as you said, there's been a lot going on, and I think a lot of people have got views that have improved or deteriorated. One of the things that I think is perhaps not that well known is that on the personal line side, so houses and cars and things, the insurance claims have been record low, in 2020 particularly, at a time when a lot of people were losing jobs, a lot of people were under a lot of financial pressure. And so while there was some attempt to pass some of that back to consumers, I mean, we certainly don't feel that enough was done. You may be aware that what we did was actually, we have this thing called cover pause, where if you're not going to be driving your car, you go onto the app, you pause your cover, and you get typically around 40 to 50% back of your premium for the days that you don't drive. And as soon as we saw what was happening with lockdown, we did it by the end of March of 2020. We went in and we increased that discount to 90%. So most people were paying 10% of their normal premium with us. And that was like roughly what the claims actually were. It was that smaller fraction. So our experience is much steadier if you look at our claims ratio, claims to premiums, compared with most of the industry. And I think that, that's a big part of what we're about. And this new technology allows us to be flexible like that, to make those kind of changes really quickly, allows people to be put into the driving seat, to use the pun, of their insurance, and to make sure that they're not paying, more than they should. So, we think that there's the kind of brand we're building, the kind of relationship we want with our customer is very different to the traditional one. And I suppose, a big part of that is the transparency and where the name comes in.
Yeah, and I actually remember at the time a colleague of mine, Catherine Child at Arena, tweeting how pleased she was. I think she had been one of the early adopters, and talking about how flexible the naked offering was at the time. Underwriting is a big part of what insurance is about, and the actuaries understand exactly how to do that with all the data that you're now getting through a digital-led business. What impact is that having on your underwriting?
Spot on. There's a whole lot of information that one has access to when one is operating fully digitally, and what we're trying to do with that information is to be able to offer our customers the best possible price. If we can understand their behavior in a more fine-grained way, we're able to understand their risk profile, and be able to say, so-and-so is a really good risk. There's no need to charge them such a high price. We can offer them a much lower price. And this is a big part of what is motivating, the insurtech wave, is finding new sources of data and new ways of reflecting that data in what people pay, and frankly in the design of the products. So you were mentioning earlier about Bank Zero and about the customer experience and the cost. Insurance has this other lens. Insurance has always been a very data-driven business. But there's a whole new wave now, with big data, with the ability to process that data, all sorts of new sources of data. We're able to become even more scientific and even better at figuring out different risk profiles and then charging people a fair price.
Wow, so a lot more runway disruption, call it what you will, ahead for the very nascent insurtech industry. And I do think we punch above our weight globally when it comes to innovation, fintech and insurtech that comes out of South Africa. So for fledgling startups, what advice do you have? If you're sitting down and you're pitching in front of they call them vulture capitalists because they've got no heart, the VC out there, and you're pitching to an investor, what advice would you have for the entrepreneur out there?
So I think firstly, getting one's market and one's proposition really clear and trying to be quite specific early on. There's a tendency to sort of say, oh no, we're gonna solve everyone's problems, but really getting to know the individual customer profile that you're trying to target, and going to school on that profile and delivering them big value. It doesn't help if you make things 20% better, as is quite well known. It's got to be 10x better. You can deliver 10x of value to a small segment. That's a real business. But of course, investors, and particularly in markets that are not the US or Europe or something like that, or China, they want to know, but hang on, is the market big enough? If this thing really takes off, are you going to start seeing your addressable market sort of the constraint of your addressable market? So on the one hand, you want to be very specific on the market that you're targeting. But on the other hand, you want to make sure that this thing is going to broaden into a market that is massive. So whether that's within South Africa, on the continent, or globally, you need to land the point that you could make these vulture capitalists exceedingly rich if the thing takes off. And so it's a lot about building that narrative, really trying to get people to feel, wow, it might be a low probability, but if this thing pays off, it's going to be huge. Because of course we know, like with the way VCs work, is they only need, 2 or 3 or even 1 of every 10 investments to work out, but it's got to work out big. So if you're not talking big, they're not going to be interested.
Absolutely. Talk big. Make sure you're that piece of spaghetti that I think Koos Becker liked to talk about, that he'd fling up against the wall and maybe 1 or 2 of them would stick. Well, I'm sure most investors are very pleased that one of those was Tencent, and who knows, the next one could be Naked as well. Alex Thomson, co-founder of Naked, here on Business Talk. Thanks so much for sharing some insights and secret sauce with us here on Business Talk. Take care.
Thanks, Michael.